That worked pretty good, huh? Did, did you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I can't I can't be outside like you. The neighbor's mowing the lawn.
We got a quiet street, so it's all good here.
All right,
So,
all right. Yeah, the login process for IG Live was you knocked it out, man.
oh man, that's why I said you got good direction, so all good.
Yeah, I said that's at least how it works. Whether that means it actually goes down like that is another story. So,
Yeah. Well, if anybody messes it up next time, you say Mike Potenza got this fine, and he's just IG illiterate. So,
dude, far more active on social media than I. Ben Pakulski, he pooped the bed on that. Like it was all over the place, and
oh man,
I'm pretty sure he's using IG way more than me.
yeah, dude, way more than me
You
too.
you know him? You know who he
No,
is?
I saw I was scrolling through your photos and posts and stuff, and I don't know him. I gotta look into him.
So like like top A1A level IFBB guy, so bodybuilder from
Hmm.
probably how he's most well known, but actually very competent and knowledgeable in training non bodybuilding folks.
Cool.
So that's and more importantly, he's from Toronto.
Oh, cool.
So that's as you and others know, I'm a surrogate.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't have my provincial healthcare card, but I got about everything else from Toronto.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Like it's interesting uh, to because I think most people know I'm not with Canada basketball anymore, but for the last 10 years to be received in the way, to be an American holding this very high
Yeah.
profile, certainly not like hockey or bobsled or some of these other sports in Canada that are dominant, but that's the way they
Ba-
treat me. It's pretty cool.
And basketball's grown quite a bit there. Like the Raptors had done an unbelievable job, I guess, and winning only helped, and I'm sure you saw it grow, right?
I mean, that was all happening before. Uh, so, hey, can you see when people are saying things like that or no? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see the feed. Yeah, they're just saying,
Yeah.
What's up,
Yeah,
Charlie?
yeah.
What's
So
up?" Something.
you can jump in. I don't do a good enough job of saying hello to people
Yeah,
or hit the wave. Let me scroll back. Let's see what I missed here.
yeah,
Nutrition doctor. Hey, I'm good, man. Like the other people
yeah,
do it like that. This is just more like a
yeah.
podcast. Yeah,
I
I have
can't,
my
I
Green
can't
Lantern
walk.
hat. Yeah,
Yeah, I can't walk and chew gum at the same time. So never.
yeah.
I can't answer everybody. So
Um, so anyway, with Canada basketball, look, it all goes back to the middle '90s when the Raptors started, far more than their recent success over the last couple years. That certainly didn't hurt. It didn't maybe that probably translated to some sponsorship dollars for the organization, and then it kind of got blown up with COVID. But the
mhm,
bottom line is that guys like Tristan and Corey, like long before that, Canada was still probably the number two prolific country in developing, elite basketball players. It was
wow.
minuscule, but it was also that goes like before the Dream Team, which then created this birth of the rest of the country, rest of the
For the
world
world.
rather,
Hmm.
developing basketball. And it was always Russia, the Soviet Union, or whatever they were called, and then they broke up into a whole bunch of different countries. But regardless, though, like look, I've seen Corey Joseph hit a home run in batting
Hmm.
practice.
Yeah.
Tristan would be a tight end or a wide, or
Hmm.
some kind of a five technique guy. Andrew Wiggins would have been an Olympic sprinter or hurdler, just
Hmm.
like his mom. All these dudes would have been playing. I'm sure some of them would have played hockey, even though
Yeah.
their height, is probably exceeding where a lot of guys are successful in your sport. But it all goes back, and a lot of these guys they'll say Vince Carter. Like he showed. young African American, African Canadian.
Yeah,
We're all North American, which is a big joke that
that's
we
true.
talk
That's
about. Like,
true.
I'm like, guys, am I allowed to call you African American? And like, we're all North American.
Yeah,
And that Vince Carter showed them that they could do this.
yeah.
They didn't have to go into track, or like Tristan could have easily been a world class thrower in terms of shot put or discus. I mean, when you're 6'8.5", 6'9", 270 pounds and can move like that,
Yeah.
you can clearly have the rotational skills to throw a shot put. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't imagine. Imagine how explosive these and look, who knows, man. Yeah, but it was Lauren Goldenberg, man. He's the
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, that's my guy.
He messaged me this afternoon. He said he's gonna try. He's gonna try to come. I'm like, hey, Lauren, if you have to go, it's all gonna be recorded. Don't worry, everything will be cool. So now there are some of the guys that we saw probably earlier in my time. They had played hockey,
Hmm.
but they were more. And look, the Canadian college system, I forget what it's called. It's not even on my radar. But there's some really good players that
Yeah.
are playing professionally.
Yep.
Nigeria, that just beat America, has some at least one Canadian, because a lot
Yep.
of these guys have the opportunity. If you have the heritage, you can almost pick what country you play for. Like, for
Yeah.
instance, if I was ever an Olympian, I would have the opportunity to claim Germany, given
Hmm.
where my mom was born.
Yep.
So one of the players who has never really been in the national team system, because he's been with Nigeria, he was on that team. There was some, the rule is that if you have never played a senior game, so if you
Hmm.
play juniors or U16 or something like that, you can't you can jump, you can pick, you haven't declared, and then there's always loopholes. Dylan Ennis, I think he was with Jamaica, and he has been able to join Canada if he chose to.
Yep.
So but so there were some guys that played hockey, and so very soon, anyone will see a young man named Olivier Roux, Rious. So he's from Montreal area.
Hmm.
He's, I believe, he has been 7'3" or 7'4" for several years now, and I think he's like a sophomore or junior. He had a decision to go to be professional in Real Madrid, I believe, or go to IMG. And I'm like, oh God, go to please don't go anywhere near IMG. Oh my God,
Yeah.
like this is where athletes go to die. That's where he went. He went to IMG. I mean, look, I'll just say I have no allegiance. IMG, like if you see any parents
I didn't know it was
that
still open.
oh my God, what a I mean, anyway,
Yeah.
and I don't know who's there, and whatever's going on there is not good, and I'm okay saying that publicly
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
these are kids that I care about, these are families that I care about, and I care about Olivier, but that's where he is, and he's still supported at a high level. So he came. I think he was 12 years old. I think he was 7'1" or 7'2". We had games in Quebec, in Montreal area, and he hurt his ankle, so he came to check in with Sam and I, and just be around a little bit because this kid's gonna be something special. He's bigger than Zach Edey, who is at Purdue, and I think he's 7'3". He and he hurt his ankle. I said, "Well, how'd you do this?" He's like, "Oh, I hurt it playing hockey." And I'm like, "Yes, this dude's playing other sports. This is
Yeah.
awesome. This is
I know
awesome."
it's such a rarity now, isn't it?
But also think, if you're that tall, forget about 7 feet. If you're 6'7", 6'8",
Yeah.
you think the world only has
Hmm.
basketball for you.
Right.
And look, we,
Right.
we know that there's a couple giant dudes in playing professional hockey, but there's not a lot.
No.
And
We had
so
2 6'5" guys at one point. Well, one we still have, Brent Burns, and then Joe Thornton 6'5". So
yeah,
it's a
well,
credit to their athleticism. But
no
hey,
question.
they can cover a lot of ground on the ice, and they if they go to the front of the net, then they're they're
Yeah.
overshadowing the goalie. So
Hey, so Wheatless, yes, I do virtual consults. You can check that out on my website. Thank you for asking. Hey, I think that the first time you had me out there, and it was many years ago, where guests could be in the building,
It
etc.
was, oh yeah, it was a
And
long time ago.
I'm just standing there looking around, watching guys skate, and I remember telling you like, is this a big team? Like,
Yeah, we
because
were back then.
I saw Joe Thornton, and I'm like, okay, that's a big dude.
Mm,
You know, in my because coming up, a lot of I don't know, people know like. Hockey was like my second sport, but I played with a lot of really good players.
mhm,
And at that time in New Jersey, Junior B started to create some swell,
mhm.
and Scott Gomez,
Oh
being
yeah.
much younger, played against younger Drury, Chris Drury.
Mhm,
And I'm not at that level, but I played with I think when my senior year in high school, two Princetons, one Northeastern, as a public school. Now in Tom's River, a public school is not always,
yeah.
sometimes people move. But I think everybody on that team played a college sport. So yeah, we came across. Yeah, so to me, I'm used to guys like I remember the first time I saw Eddie Belfour take his top off. I'm like, oh my god, he's like 150-pound looking dude. Like because
Yeah.
I probably looked the way I was supposed to look with goalie gear on, but. I remember you had
It,
some big giant
yeah,
characters around that
it
time.
was we did at that time. I remember it might have been 2010. It wasn't too long into my time here in San Jose where you came out, but you know what, Charlie? It's going up and it's changed. The tides have changed. You know, sometimes you wanted a bigger team. Now we want small guys that are fast and really skilled. And then sometimes you go back to the bigger guy, and it is interesting. Having spent that was my 15th season, having spent this much time and see things change, it's been pretty cool. Like you
Hmm.
know, Goldie, Goldie, you've seen it change two times over in my time here, so he could share even more
Yeah.
trends and stories that have changed in our league. But
So 15 years, huh? That's how long you've been in the NHL.
yeah,
That's
hmm
I tend to think, and this is part of what we're talking about. Mainly will be to highlight what we're going to be doing on Wednesday with the professional organizations of the strength coaches, the athletic trainers, and the equipment managers all have their yearly conference and meetings
yeah,
together.
hmm
So I'm going to be presenting Wednesday morning. I think I'm the first presenter for the strength coach side.
yeah,
And so I'm having a conversation the other night about a patient with a physician that I'm very close with. And this physician asks me, "Hey, so I saw you're talking at the hockey conference." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, because I have so limited about hockey, I'm forgetting that Baram is probably like a major resource
Shooter, yeah,
for you
he's
guys,
great.
and we're going at the same time, so
Yeah, yeah,
I can't listen to him speak.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think it's very fair to say in New York City, the two top known hip surgeons is Srino Baran and Brian Kelly. So
yeah.
they
Shrino
both.
talked to our group last year. Yeah,
Oh,
no, yeah,
so he's
but
coming back again, huh?
yeah, so he's coming back for the athletic trainers, but great guy. You know, one of my favorite guys. Like he was so good to talk to, and you know, he was one of the first physicians that I had the privilege of talking to. But he had a plan for rehab after. He said, "Hey, these are the benchmarks," you know, and yet we had such good engagement together, like talking about the surgical case that he did on one of our players a year ago, and he was right there every step of the way. It wasn't
Yeah,
like, here it is, go for it, you know, do what you got to do. The stitches are closed, I'm done, you know. He was
yeah,
very
yeah,
engaged, and it was great. I think
yeah.
for your listeners and our colleagues, it's important to have that kind of relationship, you know.
Well, that's I in those situations, he was probably the first stud physician that I got connected with when I came to New York City in around the same time you're saying 2010,
Hmm
2011. So I was very close with a fellow named Joe Klecko, which I'm sure a lot of people from the East Coast are going to remember.
Yeah.
He was part of the New York Sac Exchange for the New York Jets. Um, I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but he's in like the Jets Hall of Fame. Um, the the New York Sac Exchange was Joe Klecko, Mark Gastineau, Marty Lyons, and I'm going to say his name wrong, but I think it was.
Cool.
I just got a phone call. I forgot to take it off on that, but and they so I lived a couple towns over from Joe, and when his kids started to need something, he would just make a phone call to Lenox Hill, which is one of the big time hospitals in New York City, and they've worked with the Jets forever. I don't think they're still working with the Jets now, especially since they moved their practice facility out towards Western New Jersey. So he's like, just tell him. So if we get Bahram on the phone, it's the first time I'm talking to him, and he's like, just tell him what you want. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, he's like, just tell him what you would do, and he'll listen. I'm like, okay, yeah, doc, I would, before we do anything, I would do, an intra-articular cortisone injection, and we just use it as a diagnostic. And this is what he said. And he knows I got 275 pounds of almost a Hall of Fame defensive lineman sitting next to me. But he says to me, he's like, are you sure you want it intra-articular? And I'm like, I look at Joe, and he's like, I told you. And from there, I worked with him quite a bit. His wife is also an orthopedic surgeon that works with foot specialists, and both him and Kelly are just right off that Philippon tree. Like they're the next generation. There's generations that have come after them that are a little bit more accessible in New York City, and but I have never not been able to make a phone call and get that level of VIP treatment. I think sometimes, particularly in New York City, people think that they can't get to those people. Whatever you think you can't get to me or whatever. It's not accurate. Now there's logistics involved, and sometimes when you're more reliant on insurance, no, those guys aren't going to be the most efficient option. But it's not like you can't see them. It's not like they won't see you. So, but he and I are speaking at the same time.
That's great. Well, I'll send you the video. Don't worry, you'll be able to see it.
Yeah. I have so another one of the major hip guys or more abdomen guys that I know you deal with a lot in hockey, given I think the more contemporary terminology is athletic pubalgia. We're not really calling it sports hernia as much, but there's synonyms. Is Mark Zolan, and he was the primary author of the book, and Bahram is one of the co-authors.
Right.
So I'm like, yeah, I got Zolan's book, and he's like, oh, you know Zolan? I'm like, yeah, I know him. He signed the book. You didn't. So it's,
I could get you to sign it.
No. But going back to 15 years and big guys, little guys, we can get into a little bit of training here. How many coaches over 15 years?
I'm on my fourth.
Okay, and I'm gonna guess that they all have at least 2 or 3 different coaching styles in terms of how they want to play the game.
I would say 3 of the 4 are similar, and then the first coach that I had, Ron Wilson, who had been in the league a long time and coached the U.S. to the first World Cup in '96, I think. He was a very smart guy and very offensive minded. And then Todd McClellan had very, very brilliant mind in terms of offense, but also wanted to take care of his own end and the defensive side of things. And Pete DeBoer and Bob Bugner, they're kind of in the same coaching tree, and I would say, it's defense first, which is okay. They don't want to give up anything, but they still do want to attack offensively. So I've come to appreciate that, but I also kind of learned from the coaching side, what goes into that. How does my program change, and how do I have to account for that? And not just think, okay, I'm just getting ready to play hockey. So
that's what I want to get at, and I want you to talk about a little bit, because something that I think is crucial is to have a very clear understanding of the style of play. I do think some sports will be different than others, But if there is a significant difference in the physiological demands of
Hmm.
how a coach wants to play, well, then that has to, number one, that has to be known, meaning it has to be communicated. And then secondly, there's got to be changes or at least attention to the program.
Hmm.
So have you had to deal with that over 15 years in terms of understanding how these guys want to play?
Yeah, and I think my aha moment was when Ben Peterson at the time was still working for Catapult, and Ben and I had always been really close, and he came out to do a demo, and this was like not 8 years ago, I think, and I was trying to show the difference to our head coach at the time, Todd McClellan, like, okay, there's a cost difference to just skating for conditioning or doing battle drills. And Todd was very much into look, we need to win battles, and there's a physical cost that goes against that you get charged for. That's more like wrestling than it is really straight uninterrupted conditioning. And I agreed, but we just couldn't quantify it. We did a little bit through heart rate, but when we did catapult analysis, at least, and you could really do any type of GPS kind of analysis or any sort of device that's out there now, but it really showed a cost difference. It showed a workload difference. That's kind of how I've looked at it more so. But I think it's important. I think in many situations it's the hockey coaches coaching the strength coaches or performance coaches, but it's also the reverse. It's also us being able to coach coaches in the fact that getting them to understand what the cost is. Don't say, hey, I
Yeah,
want to get fast. I want my team faster, and you go and do a drill for 45 seconds. Like, let's just
yeah.
work on true speed. And that's kind of what's happening now. I think there's an evolution of that now. So
Yeah, the obviously in the conversations we've had over the years, and part of me no longer being at Canada Basketball, I grew up with coaches that not only were amenable to what you just described in basically playing equal. I am very proud to say things like Jay Troiano would tell me and Sam that, hey, June 27th is our first game. You need to tell me what I should do to make sure we're flying on that first game. And he would, be very interested in that and demand it. It would be, and Roy Rana, as well as Jay, they would come and sit in front of the big screen, and we would wire the computer and actually talk about Omega Wave. Now, it's very possible that um, as a leader, maybe it was all bullshit and he was just making us feel important. I don't think it was that, but if it was, it worked. And Nick just didn't give a rat's ass about any of those things. He didn't feel like what you just said. He didn't feel that performance, strength coach, internal external load. He
yeah,
didn't think that could make him better. And I'm not a useful individual for that. And that's it's just business, where and we can get into some of these other things, but one of the lines I learned when I was at MARSOC was that everyone is equal. Some people are more replaceable than others, but everyone is equal. And just because you make decisions and someone else is required to primarily follow decisions, that doesn't mean somebody's more important.
right.
And it's very disappointing to go from a culture where the head coach really not only cares but demands that level of information to going to a hard
Yeah.
zero, to a hard stop. That's and that might be some of the stuff when you talk about cost of different types of training. We're going to talk about, I think, at a very general level, maybe a 10,000-foot view of that on Wednesday, where
Hmm.
you've asked me to probably funnel some things that I've talked about before, but put it into the scope of in season.
Yeah.
And we're gonna take the assumption that in season. Now, how many guys actually? You maybe will help me with some of these questions for Wednesday. How many guys always dress? Like what's
Uh,
the relatively?
20
Yeah,
you'll dress for a game, and then you'll have, in a normal year, you'll have
yeah.
two or three extra. So,
So there's always going to be a couple guys that might never play, or might
right.
in basketball it's much different. You're going to have guys that never get in the game, and you can probably their in season program might be more developmental,
Right.
meaning you're going to apply methods that will have a higher cost so you can get a higher gain. I mean that's
Hmm. Hmm.
there's a fundamental training concept, whereas if you apply those same methods to in season, you are now taking resources away from game day.
Yeah.
And
Right.
or even yesterday, or today maybe, brilliant. One of my, a physician in the city that I think very, very highly of. He's traveling with USA basketball for the Olympics, and he was talking about Martin O'Malley is talking about guys lifting after games, and they're like, Charlie, what do you think of that? I think, well, first of all, they're not lifting after games; they're doing stuff with weights in their hands, and he's talking about it's a good cool down. Now he probably thinks they're lifting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The ATCs that they probably think they're lifting,
Hmm.
but this is good stuff like to do. Like just because you have dumbbells in your hand, you're not developing these requisite qualities. So we're going to talk
It's
about other models of training that are more stimulative, and then try to keep that cost at a minimum.
hmm
And also maybe and or show up with a lot of biological money so
yeah.
that when you do have to pay a high cost, you have the resources to do it and keep going from period to period, quarter to quarter, but more importantly, game to game.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big part of what we're talking about.
I think what's unique too is like, I was, I'm like every other strength coach. I really enjoyed programming for the off season. Like there's no other interruptions technically when I was working in the college ranks, and even now there's not really a lot of interruptions per se. Maybe more so now because the rules have changed a little bit. Coaches can get them from some blocks of time in NCAA, but I think every strength coach loved the off season because you can put all your energy into this beautiful model. You know what I mean? And that's great. But when I came here, it took me a couple of years to be like, holy shit, my in season is now my off season. Like I got to take all that energy because I have them for 9 months, and then I don't see 95% of our guys in the off season. So my responsibility is to make sure that I dial in the in season, and that's kind of like my energy has been focused there a lot for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years.
And
To try to make it the best I
it's
can, and
different. Yeah, it's
yeah,
different. You
yeah,
can't you can't directly. I think you can incidentally improve any quality by increasing relative work capacity. But this is why I think in other sports sometimes it can become frustrating because you're seeing a big shift in the NFL of these physical therapists that because if you constantly train to develop like strength, power, and there are all these what I call micro qualities. You have to pay for that. And now if you play your games and then you don't, and then again, I'm talking now specifically in professional basketball. If you where the monitoring is not as consistent as it is in the NHL, the guys just don't they refuse to do it. And I'm sure that happens in hockey too. Guys are going to be like, I'm not into that. I don't want. But I don't. But it's not nearly as much. I mean, guys in Canada, we try. We don't hold we didn't hold their contract. But even then, some guys still wouldn't do it. I remember talking to a strength coach from the team, and first of all, I'm not going to share any of the data with the team unless the player allows it. More importantly, the strength coach comes back to me and he says, "Oh yeah, he doesn't want to do any of that. He just wants to hoop." I'm like, well, is it a big surprise that this player has one of the highest usage ratings and tore his ACL, a couple weeks ago? And I would typically say, if people ask, that player did not subscribe to a lot of the things that we tried to do over the last several years.
yeah,
But if you try to train people to be bigger, faster, and stronger during a competitive block in team sports, this is a big piece
yeah,
of injury. but that doesn't mean you don't train.
Right.
And I think in my talk, it might look like training, but if you actually understand, like we're not trying to get stronger, we're not trying to get faster, we're not
Right.
trying to, we're just trying to be who you are as often as possible.
Right.
This is really where we can funnel that into a term of managing stress. And I don't think
Right.
there's a lot of people that if you ask them, like, what is the main thing you're trying to accomplish with your training program, they're not going to say stress inoculation or stress management. They're going to
Right.
say, well, like explosive jumping. That's what we do in basketball. So that's what we're training for. I've got news. If you use the best explosive or repeat explosive jumps, and you play a lot and you don't manage load through these ludicrous practices that wind up being 3 and 4 hours, because even if they do wear the thing in their shorts, which monitors their load, they take it off and put up like 500 shots. Like, hey, that counts too.
Yeah.
So I've always been very impressed that I think in hockey, those types of things are a little bit more common. Training after the game, monitoring, there's a level of humility of a professional hockey player by and large. I'm sure there's guys that are going to be pricks like anywhere. But I think that the willingness to understand that those types of things are trying to help players more than hold it against them in a contract negotiation allows someone like you to shine more than, well, if the players don't do it, what do you then? And I just described my situation in
Right.
Canada, where if the coach doesn't even care, well, then there's no value to this
Yeah.
$25,000 a year thing
Right.
that we have to use. So
Yeah. This toy. By and
yeah,
large, the players are, I think, in the league. Talking to my peers, they're great. They want to know. They
yeah,
understand that their most important investment isn't in fidelity or anything, but it's in their bodies, because once that breaks down and they can't produce, then they're not going to make any money. Pretty
yeah,
much,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
going to.
yeah.
So, but in season, I've always tried to deal with, and I've talked about this a couple times in a couple lectures, but the monotony, like your program shouldn't be maintenance. There does have to be times of intensity and low volume just to keep the nervous system ready and firing. But the
Mhm.
length of the schedule is a bear, and
Yeah.
you have to fight monotony. And monotony is not just there's stress, and then there's the monotony of, okay, I got to go to the rink, I got to put my gear on. We're in Winnipeg. It's freezing in February. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go outside. I got to go through these tunnels. So there's just those types of things you always got to deal with, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's I think because you've seen the stuff that I'm going to talk about in other talks. This isn't mailing it in.
Right.
We're not doing triplanar steps with a med ball and a reach, which are really good things. Those
Because
are
they're
really
really
good
good.
things.
Those are good. Yeah.
We're not going to be doing
But not as your primary exercise, I
no,
guess.
and I mentioned before, speed, strength, et cetera. These are all things that I consider micro qualities. The macro qualities, which doesn't make them more important, it just means there's a level of prioritization that to train those things can be much more complementary to competing and delivering. Whereas if you're truly going to try to get stronger, to get more explosive, there is a significant cost. Now, there's also a cost to the training models that I would throw at a professional athlete, sometimes over a 12-month period, because if they're already there and they're one of the 20 guys that you said dress, they've already proven that they can be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I would ask you the question: is it more important for them to be consistently who they are for 9 months, or is it more important for them to actually be better than who they are? I bet the answer is consistent, because then they know
Yeah.
what you get. You know what you're going to get, and you're going to get a long-term deal because the team knows you're going to
Right.
deliver.
Right.
And I think over the years, as we've seen with other athletes in other sports, that when you train for these macro qualities, they extend across all sports.
Mm-hmm.
But everything is then going to funnel into some of the things that carry over to one sport but not another, and the unique work to rest ratio. So that's what we're going to talk about on Wednesday morning.
Yep.
Do people like, so it's only for your organization, but people will be able to see it
You
after the
can
fact.
Well, you can come in as a guest. You can sign up and come in as a guest of PHATS and SFEM. Those two organizations have these long acronyms, and
Yeah.
we love adopting long acronyms. But PHATS is the Pro Hockey Athletic Trainers Society, and SFEM is the Society of Pro Hockey Equipment Managers. And SCAF is involved with that too. You can sign up on the PHATS and SFEM website. The registration link is there. They house the registration, which is great. You can see it live.
Mike, this will go up almost right away when we're done
Hmm.
on Instagram. Go on and put the link. Yeah.
Okay,
Wait
I'll do it right now.
like 20. Yeah, wait like 20
Yeah,
minutes after we go off, and then make sure people get the link so people
great.
can log in. And let me ask you this, because I know this is I know it's in basketball and other sports. When organizations like that generate money. Um, sometimes it goes to people that used to work in the league and maybe
Yeah,
are dealing with some challenges
yeah,
financially. Is that correct?
yeah.
So
I
go ahead.
know
Yeah.
of. I've fortunately been involved with and connected with all the major sports strength coaches associations to learn what they're doing and to figure out how to build ours and kind of continue to grow ours. You know, Roger Takahashi in Vancouver and Reg Grant, who was with the New York Rangers, were instrumental in getting this group together and unified and just talking about NHL policy, but even having a voice for us to the NHL. So we're trying to grow. I'm trying to take more of the approach of continue to have those tough conversations with the NHL and keep us in the conversations that when they make decisions, it affects our working group, but also to kind of what's the long-term goal for strength coaches? Can we develop some sort of pension for everybody who's served so many years in the league? Part of the funds go to an emergency fund if somebody has a traumatic event in their lives, or if they lose a loved one, or if their house burns down, or something like that, you know. So we
Yeah.
want to be able to support. It's not like maybe 15 years ago we didn't interact a lot, but as time has grown, we have a close knit group of guys who are working in the business, both in the National League and then the American League. So it's cool. You kind of look out for each other. We know that there's no secrets out there, you know, and we're all
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
solve the same problems, which is cool to lean on each other for, you know.
Well, let's do this before we get on to another topic. Your organization is obviously when you try to get people in to talk, there's an honorarium. Why don't we put my honorarium to that fund? So don't worry about sending me a
Great.
check.
Awesome.
Just put it in. Done. We don't. I don't need a plaque. Let's do that.
Okay. I appreciate that.
We're gonna put it back into the system for those good things. Something else that's actually pretty cool. Now you and I are roughly the same age. We probably came up in the same generation where the internet started. Another very, very successful longtime NHL strength coach, Sean Skehan, probably in a very similar bracket there. So it's hockey, so you have to call him Shawnee, right?
Yeah. Sean O.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or whatever Goldenberg is calling you,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Or
Potsy. I think it's
yeah,
Potsy.
yeah,
I don't
yeah. It
know.
has
Yeah.
to be plural. It's either with a
Yeah.
Y on the end
Yeah.
or it's plural. Same
Yeah.
shit in baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think probably because we're all somewhat fallen off the tree of Mike Boyle. People that are from the Northeast area. There's a lot of people that are going to be on, that are in the NHL that
Yeah.
I probably have had somewhat of an impact on, and one of them, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the first year after Kevin moved on from working with you, he had an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So yeah, funny how that
I'm
worked
trying to
out.
forget. Yeah, I'm trying to forget about that. Yeah.
I mean, just so proud of people like him and others that it's hard. Professional sports, to be there 15 years is not a normal thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people wind up, and maybe some of the people that you mentioned before, like you're just gone and you don't really know
Right.
exactly, what
Well,
to do. Not because you didn't save money. It's just like this was your life.
yeah.
There's some really people I'm excited to that are getting what they want out
Yeah.
of their life.
Yeah, Sean is he's a close friend, and I think he's been in I think 2 or 3 years more than me. He may have 18 years in the league by now, but funny story about Sean and I. Like Sean was interning for Glenn Harris at BU in '98, and it was the spring, and I actually drove to Boston from Springfield and to meet with Glenn for an interview to get that position in the summertime. And it was that's where I first met Sean, and we just kind of hit it off and stayed in contact with each other since then. I think Sean might have been leaving BC to go to Anaheim when I was at the University of Wisconsin working with hockey, and obviously I came to the league, and like I leaned on him, still do lean on him for advice. So it's kind of like that your own network and coaching tree and kind of relationship tree that it sticks with you. There's
Yeah,
quite a few guys. Kevin, I met Kevin long before I hired him, and Devin McConnell now in Arizona. He was a
yeah,
Boyle guy,
yeah.
so I remember seeing him there.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I mean, Devin would take it. It seemed like every year I would be out in Palo Alto
yeah,
once or twice, and when
yeah,
he was at Stanford, and he would just figure out a way to come, and he would come to the seminars that I was. I'm like, yeah, he's my assistant. He's allowed to be here.
yeah, yeah.
I know I don't forget those things. Yeah, I've probably leaned on you and Sean because we don't need to say the team. But I was, yeah, we remember I was offered an opportunity to be in the NHL, and the GM was very quick to tell me that I'd be making more money than you and Sean, who I put as references. And
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay,
That
would
would
be
that
good.
would have
That'd be
helped.
good for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I'd have a, I think. Yeah, I don't even want to say because then the people will know the team. Oh man, so yeah, so we're it's just like anything. I'm pretty good at talking too long, so hopefully an hour is good enough. But these are yeah, and I think you would also agree that the perspective which comes from my mentorship from Val Nasdedikin and Mega Wave
Hmm.
is not a common one. Now, when you look at the protocols, they're like, oh yeah, it's nothing earth shattering, but the story that gets weaved as to why we're choosing those protocols and not others is really going to is it really going to lend it towards in season
Right.
training. So
Absolutely.
that's exciting. So what else? Who else are you going to have in that seminar that you think people would be really interested in seeing?
Well, this year, in years past, we've had about 8 speakers, and because it's a virtual event and we don't have we're not doing a whole sponsorship event hall like in the past. So we have 4 speaker sponsors, which are 30 minutes long. And I think that's going to be interesting because there's some really good people who are very smart in their fields talking on behalf of their sponsors. And Aura Ring is going to use Josh Hagan, who's in the School of Medicine at West Virginia and in the neuroscience department. And you know Josh really well, and that's going to be amazing for us to learn from him. And then we have 1080 Sprint is going to use Peter. Peter is going to talk for 1080 Sprint, and that's where our analysis as strength coaches is going is on ice speed. And I think their tool does a really good job to help us quantify that and measure it and retest it and add resistances to it. So it helps us on the path of learning more about what speed is in hockey. And then we have Adam Douglas is going to speak for Catapult and all the research he's done and taking Catapult data and presenting it to coaches and then utilizing it to make decisions for your workload management. And then our final one is Hawken Dynamics from a force plate perspective, and Eric Renigan, who was in the NHL and he's now independent, works in Southern California at a facility, Stanford Power facility, and he's going to talk about what he looks at and how he kind of takes the information from the force plate and turns it into training. So from the sponsorship side, that's exciting. And then we have, for the speakers, the 1 hour speaker slots, it's going to be yourself, it's going to be JB Morin on the sprint side, speed development side, force velocity profiling side. And then we have Jim Laval on biochemistry, who Jim's been amazing in terms of partnering with and helping our education every year for the last, I don't know, actually 4 out of the last 6 years. He always has a ton of information that can be utilized right then and there. But from the side of things, if you're going to be talking about Omega Wave and their ability to measure the nervous system and the cost that goes into being a professional hockey player, Jim's taking it from the metabolism side, which is great for us to learn. And there's great pieces of nutritional information that will help the rust factor of our players with everything that they go through. And then our final speaker is going to be Derek Hansen talking about training and development and in-season, not in-season programming, but minimal dosing effect type training. So we're
Cool.
happy to have him. And he's a Canadian guy. He's working with more hockey players in Vancouver. So I think we got a great lineup,
Yeah, and when this gets posted, all the sign up stuff, because they don't have to watch it live, right? They can sign up and then watch it, for at least a period of time that it'll stay active. Correct?
Yeah, it will be active, and then we're actually I'm almost to the point where we're ready to launch our SCAF group and our website prohockeystrength.com. We're going to be putting all of our past 7 or 8 years education on Inspire 360. So any speaker that anybody wanted to see from the last 20 years, they can download it. And it's obviously pay per video, but there's a discount cost if you order 3 or more. Things like that. There's promotions like that. But all of our library is going to be housed on there. So it's taken a lot of work to get it going, but it's pretty cool when you look back and see how many speakers we've had. And we've had over 20, trust me, but there's been some great educational pieces I think that everybody would benefit from, not just people working in hockey. So
Yeah, yeah.
and
All right,
again,
what about
all the funds from the videos go to our strength coaches fund. So
yeah, good, good. What was travel like this year?
travel was it was nice, the fact that we only had to go to 7 cities. But the best part about it was that we stayed in the city for a 2-game series. So we cut down travel time overall, and we probably enhanced some recovery time, which was greatly needed because we played every other day. We played every other day for the last 9 weeks of the season. So that was every team, I think, did. I think every team either started that way and ended with maybe an extra day off towards the end, but we actually did the reverse. We ended playing every other day for 9 straight weeks, which is insane. It was nice for planning, but in terms of going into a city and staying there for 2 days, that was great. It's more like baseball. You don't have to rush out and think, oh man, I forgot something, or what should I order from my nutritional reps, that if I'm going to run out of stuff, I have to send it to the next city. You didn't have to worry about anything like that. You could actually, guys could have a good meal and not eat out of a tin box on the plane, or a box lunch type thing on the plane. So I hope they keep that. We'll fingers crossed for when the schedule comes out in a month or so. So,
but you guys started in a bubble though, right? And then
we
it
did.
opened up. Yeah.
We did, because
Not everybody did. Everybody was different.
no, our county at the time was the only one, much like it affected the 49ers. We had to leave our county. We
Oh,
had to leave county,
okay.
in the
Yeah,
state of
yeah.
California. So we went to Arizona. We basically, the 49ers were leaving, and then we were pulling in, same hotel. So we were in Arizona for 30 days, and then we began our travel, which we traveled, the first 10 games we were on the road. So in a way, it was nice to get all the games out. We had a lot of home games at the end of the year, but it took its toll, between missing families and being on the road for 2 months. It was a pain in the ass. So
And you're playing in front of fans or no?
we were, yeah.
Some places, yeah. Some places, no.
Most of the places we were, with the exception of the California teams, Anaheim and LA, we weren't playing in front of fans. So Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota, we were playing in front of fans.
And then only at the end did they let the Canadian teams come across.
Well, at the very end, yeah, when they found, the team that won at Montreal, then it was the semifinals. So then the conference finals, if you will. Then they brought them down. Yeah, yep.
Oh, so that's how it mapped out. Everybody there came to one team, and then that was the
yeah. So there was 4 divisions, right? So the North was the Canadian teams, and then the Pacific, and then the Northeast, and I think the Southeast or something like that. They named the divisions. So once they had the 4, then you played, like Vegas played Montreal, and they allowed them to cross the border and the Canadian president allowed us Vegas to go and play in Montreal. Thank God. I don't know what Montreal would have had to have all road games through the playoffs. So
Well, I mean, you see what the Raptors did. They were in
that's
they
right.
were in
Yep,
Tampa,
that's right.
and people asked me all the time what Florida was like. I mean, at the time, I still lived in Connecticut, so I was half the week in Tampa and half the week up at home. But I would be like, I don't know because
Yeah,
it didn't obviously I'll run the risk of getting political, but like none of that stuff bothered me.
yeah,
I didn't feel like what I was being demanded of, to wear a mask and to do this and to do this. Like I was fine, like whatever, like
right.
you just go by
Yeah,
the rules,
just follow the
and
rules. Yep. Hmm.
so I would get off the plane and I'd get in the car and I'd go to the house because obviously I wasn't in the facility in Tampa, and the players would come to the big guy's house,
Hmm.
and or I would Skype in and help out, and then I would go back to the airport. So I had no idea of what Florida was like.
Yeah.
Now, when we moved to where we're at now, this is the other side of the state. Like West Palm Beach, we got here in like April. People were still wearing masks. Like Florida is not like this, wild, do whatever the hell you
Wild
want kind
West.
of thing. I imagine there's other places in Florida that are a little bit different in their views. But I think I went to I went to Disney once in October because we had regular Sunday game and then a Thursday game, so I stayed the whole week.
Hmm.
And Disney was like the most locked down place. Disney was more locked down than the airports. Like
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in the airports could go off to the side and like do whatever.
Yep.
That didn't happen. That didn't happen in Disney. And then the first time I ate inside was November at Disney,
Hmm.
and there might have been like where there would normally be five tables, there'd be maximum two.
Yeah.
So that was flying all commercial. Now at the stadium for the fans, they would literally have like bag tape, or like if you were gonna bind somebody, in a yeah, you couldn't move your seat basically.
Yeah.
Like you had to sit where you were told.
Hmm.
So that you couldn't like be closer to other people. Like the whoever was managing the stadium. Now I actually didn't go to the Super Bowl because I was with another player already in his off season. But yeah, and then like the NBA, obviously you mentioned Aura. I was involved in the rings with what they did, but I wasn't in the bubble, so I don't know. What was more, anything more than what's public, or at least what I'm going to
Yeah.
say on, well, at least what I'm going to say on here. So,
Arizona was the most wide open state that we went to, and it was like, whoa, like, we
it
still
was
had
different, right?
to,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we didn't go out in public, and we had to eat in our area and wear a mask all the time. And, that's, hey, no, nobody wanted to be that guy to get it all shut down and obviously have a breakout on your team, because then that can even shut your team down for a while.
Oh,
Look
and
what happened with
that's
Vancouver. So,
That's how I
you know,
felt. That's how I felt because not only am I around, literally, human beings worth hundreds of millions of dollars on multiple teams.
mhm,
A couple days a week, I'm seeing regular, I'm doing my regular hours up in New York and in Connecticut. And it's like, I have to do what I like. There was no other option other than just be intelligent and follow the rules, no
yeah,
matter what we think of them. So I could look anybody. I mean, I never didn't do what I was told, and trust me,
right,
even
right,
on these airlines when they say, yeah, don't get up until the row in front of you is 6 feet in front of you. Trust me, they're not doing what
yeah,
it's not exactly the
yeah,
way it's supposed to be. So yeah, this year be different, obviously with the rules. NFL is they have their rules in place. I think we're seeing, it remains to be seen with some other leagues on how difficult they make it for players to make a decision
yeah,
on if they choose to follow some. because I wonder if I actually say the word if this gets flagged or something. It's so. But obviously in the NFL they have made it to the point where you are a black sheep if you
Yeah.
don't do it,
Right.
and then that adds up to the percentage of the team. For you or I, it would be no choice. Like you're not allowed to be around the players without it.
Right.
But the players still have the choice, and then they just go back to the standards of last year. So all that stuff is all it's all real, and
Right.
I think sometimes people that actually day to day work in pro sports, people think it's XYZ, but sometimes it's not all it's
No.
cracked up to be. So
The grass
yeah,
isn't always greener, that's for sure.
yeah. But
But
what about the Air Force stuff? What's the latest there? How you do? How you guys running the Air Force
that's
stuff in that
yeah.
area?
Um, that's for those who don't know me, I kind of very organically started performance pro U.S. Air Force pararescue, and I think it's these are badass. These are badass operators, and I never really knew about this career field, but they're fighting medics. They lend medical support, but also tactical support to our tier one assets, and um, I got involved with it and started, but I was in disbelief that this level of military servicemen and women didn't have a program like we're all accustomed to and working in the college level and the pro level and the minor pro level. So we just started it, and for a long time I had multiple contracts, and right now I have one that employs a physical therapist in Aviano, Italy, to service that active duty team there. And yeah, we're still involved, Charlie, and we're very much still involved in having the right discussions and kind of shaping the needs of every different base with the context we still have. But for a small business who the passion is definitely cannot be challenged, but from my standpoint, but the difficulty in winning government contracts is so hard.
Yeah, yeah,
It is hard because of cost and because we're a small business and going against some big contracts. And for those of you in the field, or for everybody in the field who knew API, API, Exos, whatever you wanted to call it, they were bolted on to a massive, they had a huge contract in the military, as people saw probably from the hiring that they did in the last 5 years. But, those big contractors, it's tough to compete against them, but
yeah,
you
yeah,
just hope in the end, like the presentations I've done at different weapons and tactics conferences and health and performance conferences in the military, that it's not falling on deaf ears and that they can really bring the higher level of performance and health programming to those
yeah.
operators.
I
That's
mean, it's been now 10 years since I moved on, and I saw firsthand the how illogical that government contracting process is,
yeah.
particularly when it's a human being that's being contracted.
Mm,
That process was not invented to bring in humans. It was made
right,
to, well, if we only need this many missiles, we should overpay for this many missiles, because for us to build a factory and do it ourselves, it doesn't make financial sense.
right,
So if you write down like the type of missile you want, that's the type of missile that you'll get. You
yeah,
can't write down everything that's required in order to describe the human being. You can put
right,
certifications, you can put what, and then now you're going to get into things that you're allowed to ask for and not allowed to ask for. And now you're talking to these big companies that don't even know what those things were.
no,
And that was, now if I was more mature and had a bigger interest in how long I wanted to tolerate that situation, everything would have been fine. But
yeah,
I was not that person. So like I would always go back and say, no, I absolutely would have done it the exact same way that I did,
yeah,
except I wouldn't do that today. I just wouldn't
right,
have done it. Where it, it was awful. I mean, as you know, we've talked in the past,
yeah.
but
The
what is
promising. Oh, go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Sorry. The promising thing in in our career field is that in performance, like I tell a lot of young professionals who reach out and want to talk about training. They want to talk about how do I climb the ladder and all that and that stuff. And I enjoy those conversations, but I also alert them to the kind of the new age jobs in military performance. When I was looking for a job after Springfield or after my master's at BU, it was like go on the NCAA site, go on Football Scoop, and start asking around whoever you can, you put your ear to the street and see what's available, from
Yeah.
fellow coaches and network. But now
NCAA news,
the
NCAA news.
NCAA news, yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
That's it. And
Nobody even knows what that is anymore, right?
no, nobody probably knows a Football
Dude,
Scoop. I don't even know if they're around anymore.
I'm wearing a Green Lantern hat, so I'm not as old as I might be.
I know. My nickname's Potsy. How many people know what Happy Days is, right? But
But
anyways, but there's so many
yeah,
military jobs out there that actually are they're really they can be really good jobs working with some amazing people.
yeah,
But it's just going to take this younger generation to figure out, hey, don't forget, like this is available. College jobs are available. Not many pro jobs. Internships are available in the pro level or seasonal type help, but these military jobs can really give you a leg up, and you work with some amazing athletes. So,
yeah. Well, the where I'm very excited. Well, first of all, since leaving, I was brought to multiple other, as a consultant, situations, as well as Canada. I actually think maybe I have it right here. Very, very proud. Again, talking from before, so people know like pins and medals, like
yeah,
so. I got that from
yeah,
Canadian
that's
SOCOM.
awesome.
I got this one. So.
Challenge
But
points, yeah,
the that was a pisser there where I mean that was in a that was that you can drive by a Marine Corps base. A lot of people drive by Camp Pendleton. It's just on the 405. Wherever I was in northern Ontario, driving up in the pitch black. And the instructions were like James Bond. They're like, okay,
yeah,
somebody will meet you at Wally's Bagels or something, and like, oh my
yeah,
God, it's a real deal.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but I'm still in contact with a lot of guys that I was with, and I actually have a whole like vlog that I'm gonna do because just this last week, while I was at Disney, I met with some firemen, and the first thing when that conversation starts, obviously, I don't really care at the end of the day, but the whole idea that they're called a tactical athlete, I
Mm,
think is where the problem there starts. Like they're
mm-hmm.
not different. Like I'm pretty sure there's tactics in ice hockey. I'm pretty sure there's
Yeah,
tactics in
yeah,
soccer. Like they're
yeah,
not different. Just because you
yeah,
do something really noble, which basically means you protect life or you kill a lot,
mm-hmm.
just because you
Mm-hmm.
carry a gun doesn't mean that you're different. So I don't like the idea and look, part of that is from my experience at
Right.
Marsoc not being
Mm-hmm.
terribly positive. But I still have a lot of guys who now have tapped out and they're going into those contracting positions because that's the first time they can make like a decent living. I think people are
Right.
not quite aware how much even at the SOCOM level these guys don't make
Right.
real
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Even 10 years ago, it would cost $10 million to take a Marine from selection and if he passed to become an operator. That's what it would cost the United States
Yeah.
government, $10 million.
Yeah.
That young man, and there was no women at Marsoc at that time. I don't think there still is not. They're not earning $10 million. Like they're
Right.
not.
No.
So
No.
even with all their
No.
certs and at
Right.
that highest level, even if they were to go to be a 5-star general, they would not be
Yeah.
recouping that. So they go into some of these contracting situations, and I'm like, that's not a hard no. That's not a red flag. But I don't want people that have military experience because if you've never been in the military, then
Yeah.
I have the lowest percentage, probably 0%, that they're ever going to say or demonstrate a behavior that's like, well, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
never say that. So I
Mm-hmm.
never said that because I was never there. I remember. Major General Paul Lefevre, who I know watches these. Hey,
Mhm.
Paul. I would love to hear from you, Paul, because I know he watches all this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, he said to me, like, Charlie, your problem is you look like us and you talk like us, but you're not one of us. And I was like, well, then why'd you bring me here?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the first step is to recognize that what we do in performance and rehab and training is not different. We just going to take, and this is kind of how we'll tie this up for what we're going to do Wednesday. I don't have significant experience in training hockey players. I've got more rehab, which isn't really necessarily going to get into the carryover piece. We got to, bring up to normal these injured areas. But the bottom line is like the heart and the lungs and your
Yeah.
mitochondria and your endocrine organs. All these things work the same. Like they're not different just because you carry a gun or a hockey stick or dribble a ball. And that's a big piece of what we're going to talk about on Wednesday. You mentioned Omega Wave, but I'm not talking about Omega Wave. I'm talking
Mm.
about what I learned from
Right.
from
Hmm.
Val. Now, the reality is, and I won't say this on Wednesday because I don't. I'm working for you, so I'm not going to promote something that they didn't pay for.
Hmm.
I'll say it here. If you train this way, you'll probably have Omega Wave all greens all the time. Except you don't always want all greens. Like you want
Yeah.
yellows and reds when you
Yeah.
are in a developmental process. People worry about like HRV, like with the ring. Man, if your HRV is never bad, that means you're not training to get better.
Right. Yeah.
It has
Right.
to be in the dumper sometimes.
Right. Right.
So we're gonna get into that, and that was a piece that when it comes to that military piece, and the guys that you deal with, you didn't say it, but I'll say it. Those guys are the ones that go behind enemy lines when an
Hmm.
operator is
Yeah.
determined to be injured.
Right.
So they
Black Hawk
get that.
Down.
Yeah, they
Like
get
Black
that
Hawk
phone call.
Down is
Yeah,
that. Yeah. That's the root of the
yeah,
story for Black Hawk Down. So.
yeah, that's what the special operations in the Air Force does. So to put them in a developmental training environment probably is pretty stupid because if you don't know when you have to perform, you can't exceed your 100%. You kind of have to live in that 88 to
Right.
92%. And if you
Hmm.
have been selected to be that guy, then your 92% is pretty damn good. And you've
Yeah.
already proven that you can get there. But there's a lot of other ideas that I'm going to talk about when I film later this week about that population. I'll probably use a louder voice talking about that tactical piece because just because you carry a gun doesn't mean you're different.
Yeah.
I live in Florida. A lot of these jokers out here all carry guns, thinking like they know what to do with it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that there's how can you actually create psychological load? Because once you know that, well, other thing we talked about, when the bullets are real, you cannot reproduce that in a training environment. That's
No.
not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Uh,
Yeah.
and even if you tried, you'd probably have to recover 2 to 3 months of that type of
Yeah.
adrenergic and cholinergic load.
Yep.
So you see, I just like you, I feel so strongly about being able to help them because these are people that allow us to sit here and talk.
Right.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
it's not a political thing. It's like,
No.
I was in 2017 in Miami. I was in the middle of all that stuff, watching these guys kneel and whatever. Like that had nothing
Yeah.
to do with the military. I mean, I understand
Yeah.
people, feel differently, but
Yeah.
that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The military allows us to do what we're doing right now,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and for them to have continue to have a culture of training like a douche, is something that whenever I have the opportunity to impact positively, I'll do it the best
Yeah.
way it can.
It's
So
it's the right thing to do if we can give back for
yeah,
all of our experiences, right? To a group that needs it. That's for sure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
needs it. And
So
needs it when they retire. That's for sure.
oh, that's beyond,
So,
of course, and that's
yeah.
like
That's a whole nother.
all
That's a whole
yeah,
nother
all
IG
yeah.
live.
Yeah, all athletes. I just talked recently this week on some of the guys that I work with. Obviously some of them are enormously large human beings, and how much where are we going to try to get them to walk around at? So you know, the big if the big guy goes over 310, like alarms go off. But
Yeah.
one day in a couple of years, he's going to try to walk around at 275.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
yo, if
Mhm.
he weighed 275 now, that dude would have like 30 sacks a year. Like, so yeah, he'd be like off. He'd be way off the tackle. He'd be
Yeah.
lining
Right.
up. He'd be lining up to cover the slot and just run
Yeah.
at the quarterback every
Yeah. I
time.
was gonna say he may beat some linebackers in a race, right? So.
So, all right, man. Hey, that's let's again our main focus was to pump up what we're going to talk about Wednesday, but catch up a little bit.
Yep.
I'm really excited, for all those, whether it's Kevin or Connor Ryan, and I'm sure there's other people that I'm not thinking of, as well as some young guys that have moved on, like Jamie, people
Yep.
that it's just really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm very serious. Do not send me a check. Let's make sure it goes to
I
the
appreciate that.
make
Hmm.
tell somebody who talks shit about me what I did, and they
Yeah.
make sure they know. I don't care if anybody else knows. Just
Yeah.
anybody who called me an asshole, that you can tell them that
Yeah.
I donated the money back to
I'll
him.
show. I'll show them. Yeah, where we stick the honorarium.
Yeah, yeah. So,
I
all right,
appreciate you
man.
doing that. I'm
All
excited
right.
for it, and thanks again. Take
Well
care.
done. All right. Be well. Bye
Okay.
bye.
See you, buddy.